Welcome to Paving Paradise, a podcast dedicated to the asphalt paving industry. I'm your host, Justin Rodriguez.
I'm Scott Ramsey,
co-host. And today we are at Sierra Pacific Materials in Paso, Robles, California. And we're going to learn all about where your asphalt comes from. And our hosts today were kind enough to give us a tour of their plant and tell us what they're all about. So without further ado, we'll throw it to our hosts.
Good morning, all. My name is Tim Schultz. I'm with Sierra Pacific Materials. I'm the sales manager here.
Brian Lints, also with Sierra Pacific Materials, the operations manager.
Nice. Thank you guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having us on.
First, this is big for us. This is our first asphalt supplier. We've been talking. This is our 10th episode, and talking about a lot of asphalt, what goes into it. So now we get to hear it straight from the horse's mouth. And why don't you guys kick it off by go through different areas you guys service and what do you provide out of these different plants?
Okay, so Sierra Pacific is actually a subsidiary of Pappage Construction. We're also a contracting company, civil works contractor, so we do road and highway paving, grading, underground, the full gamut of work. We have a asphalt plant here. We call it the Templeton Plant, still Paso Robles. It's
right on the border, kind of, isn't it? Yeah.
You know where to see us. The steams comes off the plant when you drive by. We're not dirtying the air. It's all clean air.
Just water
Natural gas, right? Natural gas.
Water vapor.
Yeah.
We're green. We're green.
So this operation is complemented by a rock quarry. We have an Avenal near Kalinga, California, if you're all familiar with that area. And we also have another asphalt producing plant there. And then over in Visalia area, in actually the little town of Orosi, we have a hard rock quarry there. And we could do a whole series on rock quarries and different types of aggregate, but that's for another time. We're here to showcase really the asphalt plant today. So thanks for doing this for us, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Brian, what do you do out here at Sierra Pacific Materials?
Well, between Tim and I, managing the materials division and these sites, we oversee all the quality control, for our materials. The customer service, Tim, the master with that, and his team, our sales team, and then just the operations, actually producing and putting this stuff on the ground. And every day, is a balance between those three major areas.
So now the Templeton plant is you're bringing material in from either Visalia or Avenal.
Yes.
Right.
Everything
gets stockpiled here, and then it's made through the plant.
That's right. Yeah. So in a commonly termed satellite facilities, satellite hot plants, where we don't make the material on the property, but it's got to be imported.
You mean you're not mining the material
on the property?
Oh, you're not mining the material on the property. You're bringing it in from a different mine.
Yes.
And then putting the compound together.
That's right.
The asphalt compound.
That's right. And so that's true. So the Avenal mine, which is a sand and gravel mine, is what feeds this plant primarily. 95% of what we ship out.
And Avenal is just just outside of Bakersfield, right?
It is what's about 45 minutes northwest
of
Bakersfield.
Yeah.
And how long does it take to truck from Avenal to here where we're at in Paso, Templeton?
It's about an hour and 30-minute trip.
Okay, so
That's not as bad. That's not as bad as I thought. I was thinking it was way further than that, but because they're coming through the 166 or
the 46.
Oh, the 46.
Okay.
Oh, so they're going north on the 5 or whatever, and then cut across on the 46.
In fact, we don't even have to touch the 5. It's just down to 41 over the overpass, and then go to 46.
And the reason I bring that up is because we had an episode where we talked about costs and what the consumers out there may not know, homeowners and property managers. They don't realize it. The asphalt plant is here, but there's costs involved with bringing in the raw materials to that, which we did talk about on the asphalt cost episode. But it shows that they have their challenges also having a satellite facility where you're having to orchestrate. I got to get the oil, I got to get the rock, the sand, the dust, and among other things.
Well, and a lot of times I think you and I have the easy job. We just go and install it. I mean, we have our issues with equipment, which we've had a whole episode on equipment. We talked about having an episode. Tim Schultz recommended we have an episode just on employees coming and going. And so, but then actually as California, Caltrans is ever evolving, tell us about the different products you're bringing in from Visalia and Avenal, or what you're producing out there. Not necessarily bringing in from Visalia, but what are you producing out there? Talk about the rock and the crushing and.
And do you wash the rock on site here, or is it washed there and delivered clean for the plant and all that stuff?
Good questions. Yeah. So a lot has happened over the past several decades as Caltrans requirements has evolved.
Oh God, it's
nightmare. And it has. There's been ideological shifts in how mining is approached with the mining groups, because of their changes. So, hand in hand, Caltrans does work with industry really well. With them
it's really at the end of the day, it's really one of our biggest challenges, and for most folks out there, we really take advantage of the roads that we drive on every day, but there's really so much work that goes.
We take
in.
for granted. Right?
Yeah,
we take for granted the roads we drive
there's just
on.
so much that goes into that prior to actually you guys getting out there and laying that, or ourselves as contractors.
And there's challenges on both sides, like you said. I mean, maybe the easy part's placing it, but that depends. It strongly depends, but there's a lot of challenges on the production side too, relative to all the regulations involved with mining, the sensitivities with permitting, in that way, and future planning, which California is doing a decent job kind of averting.
Well, and what I was referring to I was referring to Caltrans, not necessarily on the mining end of things, but I was referring to it on different specifications of material.
Yeah, no,
super pave. I mean, material. The overlays we see on the freeway.
You just show me the sacks of plastic. Was it you or you?
Rubber.
The rubber, the material that they add.
The materials. I mean, Caltrans is working tirelessly to get the overlays thinner and thinner and thinner, making our jobs harder and harder. Not necessarily us, but on your subsidiary company on the package end of things. Trying to do 15 miles of freeway at a half an inch of super pave, and get compaction, and on top of it doing it at night
where it's cold.
Pismo Beach.
It shocks
Right.
the
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, they make it almost impossible for us to turn out a good job.
Right. So thin lip paving, there's probably more. It's tougher specifications. When you're laying it in thicker, there's more forgiveness. But
Correct.
as they thin lift these asphalt toppings on all the roadways, the criteria for those mixes become really, really difficult. It's more than just putting a little rock and sand and oil together. There's much more that goes on. There's literally months of testings. There's trial batching that's done. Just an enormous amount of time and money.
Well, talk more about that, Tim. Talk more about that. I mean, where do you when you are looking at, if a customer like me calls and says, "Hey Tim, this is a spec I have," or if Papage is looking at a job and they need to be in a certain criteria, where do you guys start?
Yeah, so we really start with the spec. The spec is really the driving force ultimately behind what the ultimate price is going to be. So, we're looking for the types of oil that they're specifying, the gradation of the aggregate, the gradation of the sand. Sometimes it even comes down to the source of the materials too. Sometimes they will source materials that we have to go out and have to buy ourselves to provide you. So maybe the Avenal core doesn't necessarily make the specification for the aggregate. So
you would, in essence, you're saying you would buy from a competitor.
Yes. We would buy
to meet, you guys have to buy from a competing quarry to meet the specification because Caltrans kind of sole sourced it.
Right.
Kind of
sole sourced it, or perhaps it's a product that is niche enough, has enough challenges, that it just requires extra materials to get it to meet
the spec that they want.
Those high demands, because those demands go up and up and up to thread that needle to make the product right. The payoff for us as taxpayers in the end, though, is that when you're making it right, it's going to last much longer.
Hopefully,
absolutely. But to thread, hopefully. But if you're not threading that needle and you're not making the material right, then no, it won't last as long.
Right.
So it's a matter of hitting that bullseye more consistently, and that is a big focus of Caltrans and industry, is like bringing these specifications in tighter to help.
Well, and Tim and I go way back. I mean, Tim was in aggregates, and you've been in concrete, you've been in asphalt.
Tell us about yourself, Tim, and what brought you here today.
I've been in the industry now for almost 40 years, and really I started really in the quality control side of the business too, which has obviously benefited my entire career. But it's worked for suppliers, worked on the quality control side of things. I worked for other local companies here. So I guess my really go-to is sales. I really love the sales, but my day-to-day challenge is obviously the technical side of the business. That's where I think the fun of it all is. The sales, that's fun as well, but the technical side of it, the day-to-day challenges we're faced with, and it's a continual learning process. This is one thing, and I know that you guys, it's probably the same for you, is that I pick up every trade magazine I can find.
Oh, yeah.
It's constantly reading more material, finding out new technology. I mean, it's just to focus a little bit on the quality control. I mean, our quality control people, it's an education process every day just to stay up with the codes and all the approvals, because we need approvals for them to actually do specific tests in our laboratory.
Yep.
So Caltrans not only has that criteria where it's really tough to meet the aggregate specifications, but they come in, they will evaluate the equipment that we're using to test the aggregates with. So it's very involved.
Yeah, and there's different tests, and Caltrans does different plant tests, right, to make sure that you're going to meet their specifications.
Different plant tests.
You do it once a year or something, or
more than that.
I think a lot, yeah.
but sometimes
Well,
I know
because
we
when
get
they're-
shut down, like at Vulcan or some other plants I go to, you can't get today because the plant's going to be shut down for the
Right.
next couple of days. We're doing testing.
Well, and I've been
calibrations.
I mean, this year alone, I got called from Tim a couple times. We're paving up here in Paso, and I call in for a 1/2-inch medium, and Tim's like, "Hey, we're doing a new test run for Caltrans. Can you take 3/4 today, or 3/8 max medium? Because we need to make." Because you got to make at least 100 tons per batch, right?
About 100, 150
And
50 tons.
That's what talking about Brian earlier's challenges. Like maybe eventually, or if you want to talk about the difference between this is a drum plant, it's not a batch plant.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that's the facility you guys have here, and maybe we can learn
Tell
a little bit
us
about
the
that.
difference.
Yeah, that's a critical point that we love to communicate, with our customers, and then the public will probably be somewhat fascinated as well. But yeah, there's two types of processes to produce the asphalt concrete, and it's referred to as a continuous drum plant or a batch plant.
Mm-hmm.
Oddly enough, both plants have drums, installed in them, so you always see the classic spinning drum
To dry the aggregates.
to dry the
Yeah.
aggregates. That's right. That's exactly what that drum is it's just a rotating.
Oh yeah, here we go.
Here's a visual.
Yeah, there we
It may
go.
not be the prettiest, but this
No.
is basically
No, yeah.
the mixer and the oven all in one.
And the actual binder doesn't go into that, right?
The oil doesn't
Only
go
the
in.
aggregate. Only the aggregate goes into that.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. So the difference between the batch
Sorry,
and
I'm
the
sorry,
continuous.
Brian.
No.
Yeah.
It's all right. No.
Stay in order however you like. Yeah.
The continuous mix plant is, I like it sounds, it's a continuous process where the oil is constantly being distributed into the mix on a continuous basis, a continuous flow of oil that's regulated and metered. Same thing with the aggregate. It's tuned in to how much aggregate is on the belt, so it's constantly adjusting how much oil we're adding to
And
it.
this is
to
a
hit
drum.
the
This is
target.
a drum plant.
This is a drum plant.
Got it.
So it's continuously mixing the asphalt while we're running, versus the batch plant. It does it in batches, just like it sounds, where there is a pug mill.
That's where it
Anywhere.
mixes the emulsion, right? With the aggregate. and
That's
the
right.
pug mill.
In the pug mill, that's where the mixing occurs.
It's not emulsion; it's just oil. Like PG 6410.
But it could be emulsion.
Okay.
We can make products with non-hot.
Okay, for like cold mix and stuff.
Cold,
like that.
exactly. Yeah. So in the batch plant, it's a rotating pug mill mixture drum that can only take so much weight, typically 2 to 6 tons of material. There's a batch of this stuff, and then there's a separate scale that's a pot, literally a large pot that the oil is distributed into, and it weighs it right there in the pot. So there's no metering of it; it just physically gets a weight on it, and then you got a kettle of rock and a kettle of oil,
And away
Yeah,
they go.
right.
Yeah.
It reminds me of like the medieval thing
Yeah,
where the guys
kinda.
would pour the oil and the
Totally.
Yeah. Right.
And you know what? It's funny when you look at the old the oldest asphalt plants, they totally look like a device like that, where you got the guys up there literally with scales.
This one, yeah.
Yep.
You look at that plant.
But that's all internal. You don't really see the pot out. Can you see it outside? I'm not too familiar with it.
Typically not.
Okay.
No. And it's tough to distinguish the batch plant from the continuous mix plant. The giveaway tends to be the heated aggregate tower.
Mm-hmm.
It's a.
Do you have a picture of that too?
Yes. So here at our plant, the tallest tower we got is the silo. We have a control room here, the plant here, and that's about it. Now on a batch plant, this drag slat not this drag slat here. There actually would be a vertical elevator taking aggregate up to a heated storage area, and so it stores the separated aggregate up here that's already been heated, and then it drops the aggregate down into that pub mill.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And so that when you guys take a gander at Cal Portland, which has a batch plant, you'll see that larger structure that's feeding that drag slat that goes up to their silos.
Okay, and that's where the pug mill is in that structure.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And
how many tons, Brian, per silo?
Our silos here are 300-ton silos.
And how many do you have?
We have 2 here.
So you can silo 600 tons.
Yes.
You can put 600 tons on the year.
And that means for the people at home that they're able to store that material in there, so you can order it in the morning. They'll make it beforehand, and you're ready to go with the trucks, and they'll just feed it into the trucks under those silos. Is that correct?
That's right.
Yeah.
The disadvantage that we have that we work to overcome and service everything that we can service at a high level. We have those 2 silos because so we can do more than one product, as well. I mean, being able to make a bunch and kicking out a lot more mix is helpful just from mainline paving and larger projects. But to do a lot of the smaller work and metro work, in lieu of having a batch plant, multiple silos allows us to at least get multiple products offered on a daily basis.
So because I think that the challenge for a small contractor such as myself, where going to a batch plant, it makes it a little bit easier for me because they'll be able to make and mix whatever per
Well, that's
product,
what I was going to say, Brian. Go through the pros and cons of batch versus...
But this plant can output faster, right? Or more tons.
But less flexibility.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah. So
That's
you can
right.
get more out. So it's good for like a highway class paver where they're doing miles and miles of road because they can just crank out the material with this versus the batch plant's a little bit slower, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right. That's right. And from a cost of the plant point of view as well, that cost per ton, there's a tension there, in the sense that you can buy a batch plant that could run neck and neck with a continuous mix plant, but it's just it'll be a more expensive plant than that continuous mix plant, sort of thing. So the technologies can keep up with most productions, and the big disadvantage that we have that we lament all the time is a batch plant can stop because they're making one batch at a time. They can make any batch they want from one batch to the next. They could be making you 1/4-inch sheet
or 3/8
Or
to the next
3/8,
Right.
yeah. And so some guy comes in and bought a load of 3/8 earlier. I need more fines in my 3/8. Give me whatever you gave me earlier, but put more fines in it.
Right.
Then they could do that easily.
right.
Just have this smorgasbord.
That's good for little guys like me, but like if Papich is running the highway, they're just doing that consistent same material for that long run. So
Yes.
so that's where this would come in more handy. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's less moving parts, so to speak. So when you're wanting continuous production and high uptime, the continuous mix plant again would be better than a batch plant for that.
So you're removing that pug mill,
paving.
less parts, basically less stuff to go wrong or break down.
That's right. Yeah, there's those vertical bucket elevators for the aggregate. They're great machines, but it is again another lot of huge string of moving parts that will shut your whole plant down. So yes, there are more moving components to a batch plant.
Well, and the thing that Tim's always expressed to me with the drum plant you guys have here is to make, and this I would say would be a little bit of a disadvantage, in order to make 3 tons, you're going to end up wasting 25.
Yeah.
Is that about accurate?
It's safe. Yeah, so to make your 3 ton, maybe it takes 10 to 15 tons.
And
So there's a great deal of waste.
the reason for that is in that continuous mix plant where that oil is balancing with the aggregate, it takes a minute, to balance out
For everything to come together and
mix well. So we got to waste that little bit of first material that's being distributed for that first.
And you throw that away, right? You have like a little truck that comes in, picks it up, and dumps it somewhere, and you can use it for wrap or something.
Put it in your wrap pile.
That's right.
Yeah, throw it on the wrap pile.
That's right. Now the whereas with the batch plant, you don't have that issue.
Right. And then I wanted to ask you with oil, because the oil is something that always kind of fascinates me, because you buy it by the ton of oil and it sits out there. How much oil would you go through in a day if it's a really busy day? And then how often do you have an order, or is it like constantly trucking it in from wherever the oil comes from, wherever your supplier is?
Good question.
So I'd like to know about
Yeah.
that.
So the capacity of this plant for a day period is about 2,000 tons.
Mhm.
That's the most that we could push out.
Okay.
So 2,000 tons, we use about 5% oil, call it, roughly. So 200, that's about 100 tons of oil, which is 4 truckloads. 4 truckloads of oil, so 6,000 gallons a load, so about 24,000 gallons for a 2,000 ton day.
Mm-hmm.
And that stuff is trucked from Bakersfield.
Okay, so you get over the hill, also like your aggregates come. So everything's coming in from Central Valley.
Yes, and so oil, yes, it's more expensive than the aggregate. Aggregate, industry anywhere from $10 to $20 a ton, roughly, and the oil is. I mean, we've had a lot of interesting fluctuations on oil prices.
We've
this
talked
year.
about that before on past episodes.
This year's been wild,
But so because of this year, it's anywhere from $200 to $500 a ton. Sort of thing. The oil, we spend a lot more money trucking that. It comes from pretty far away at times.
It's heavy too on the road. Yeah. So you would need to order 4 or 5 truckloads of oil just to fill up to get enough for a day, or you can store what you said, it's 2,000 gallons you can store.
We store 30,000 gallons of
wow,
storage.
that's a lot of material.
Yeah, that's
30,000 gallons of liquid asphalt you can store here.
Yes.
Wow,
That's a lot. I didn't realize that we're having that much on site.
So that's
You gotta keep it
125.
hot,
Was
too.
that 125 tons, roughly?
Yeah.
About 125 tons. Okay.
Wow.
So we can hold about 5
5 loads. Yeah.
Now it's split between.
And Tim
three
said you got to
tanks.
keep it at
Yeah, so
325.
what happens
Yeah.
if you have a power outage or something and like the oil?
It happens.
Interesting. Yeah.
Oil
Good
gets cold.
question.
That'd be really expensive.
It's downtime. And what it does is it translates into downtime for our customers. Because if we have a power outage that our systems that we have in place don't notify us, and the oil gets cold,
The lines get cold.
The
Yeah.
lines
Can you
get
reheat
cold.
it and get it, or do you have to like
can't.
throw drums away? Sometimes?
No. It can be
Okay.
reheated, fortunately, but
Okay,
it just takes forever.
Yeah.
If it's
Imagine.
cold, if it was a weekend and it was off all weekend and we were cold, it would probably take all of 24 plus hours to
Yep.
try and
So
heat back
for the
up.
folks at home, they have to keep these big storage silos. They keep them heated to have heating elements inside.
That's right.
And is there an impeller or anything to circulate it inside? Or
Not for the asphalt. There's no impellers in the tanks, but it is continuously recirculating.
okay,
So it is moving.
so you kind of have moving. And then what's a storage for storage temperature for PG6410?
We store it at about 285.
Oh wow, it's
Around there,
really
too.
warm. That's hot.
280. Yep.
So that's a little bit less than I would have thought, though. That's a little.
I always thought
And
it was
then
like
it's going,
150
and then it's
degrees
going
or
into the
something.
plant at about 285 too.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the rock we cook no hotter than 325.
Okay.
And we target make and mix on a general basis for day-to-day work, 310, 315 degrees.
So leaving the plant.
Leaving
the
the
plant,
plant.
315.
Right.
So the heat of the rock is enough to warm up that asphalt oil to get up to that next level. So it's a 285, and the rock is at 325. It meets in the middle somewhere at around 310.
That's right.
Okay, and that's where it's
Yeah.
leaving the plant. Because we want to lay it down no cooler than 285 itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
When we're
275.
275 for
Break down to
compaction.
275. Yeah.
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 Mhm.
And you guys pay close attention to that too. Your roller operator probably has the temperature gun and
You should.
shoot the temperature right.
Well,
Teach you good habits.
we had one episode just on rolling, which I don't think it's aired yet, but we had one episode on rolling, and so my guys, I just give them. I made a chart in which we had it on one of the podcasts, and I go by minutes. So I made a chart for the guys, and it says, okay, if we're paving, if asphalt's leaving the plant at 3:15, and it's 80 degrees out, and we're paving at 2 inches, you've got about 45 seconds to get on the mat.
Oh,
Yep.
So
That's
I have a little chart that I give to my roller guys,
That's great.
and it gives them a guideline.
That's
that is
critical.
awesome.
Because if you don't get on it, I mean, it rattles. It will not. You don't
Right.
get the right compaction, and you're not meeting your densities, and the asphalt will
Right.
fall apart. So
Yeah.
that's why it's good to hire a quality contractor.
That
Like
is-
Scott, who knows what he's doing.
That's right.
Or Pappas. Yeah.
That's 100%. Hence the nature of the gypsy feature that you
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Don't get
No, don't get Justin going. Yeah, don't get Justin. It'll be beep, 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 beep. Yeah, F this and F that. Yeah.
So there are alarms on those heaters. So Armando, our batchman, he'll be down here on the weekends.
He gets
and
an alert from
he'll get
API
an alert
or
that
something.
The,
That's right.
Yeah.
that the
Oh, so you
heater-
have somebody on call
Right.
in case something goes
right.
wrong.
So if that heater shuts off, he's
Yeah.
Because that's thousands and thousands of dollars of supply, of material
Oh, yeah.
supply that
Yeah.
you have.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's even more than that
Expensive.
when we impact somebody because
So what about if you're you're cranking at full capacity? You're constantly having the oil come and truck, because they'll deplete that 125 tons pretty quickly, or how long do you think
that's
it'll take?
that's exactly
In a
right.
day.
I mean, we have 5 truckloads of storage. A full day is 4 truckloads. So yes, as we produce, we're
So it's daily
bringing
then.
it.
You're
Yes,
bringing
yes.
in
Right.
material day and night.
Every day that we run, we're
Okay.
pretty much bringing it, unless it's a very small, small production days and we're full on oil or something.
Yeah,
for some reason.
that's fascinating.
So,
yeah.
It's so
Logistical
interesting.
thing, getting the aggregates here, getting the oil here. You know,
But for example,
truck breaks down.
Yeah,
waiting
exactly.
for the
Yeah,
oil.
juggling. Yeah,
Right.
you're right.
there's so kind of speaking of some of the challenges and just bringing things in again, it's fascinating, all the things that we do put in our concrete and our asphalt. Rubber, you guys mentioned rubber, so the ground tires and tennis balls and sneakers and all that is put into California roads on a highly specified rubberized mix. That's why some of our roads are a little quieter than before.
And what about those plastic polymer? I call it plastic, but there's little white pellets that they'll put into
It
it.
is plastic. That's basically what it is.
Yeah.
It's
So is that a different
polymer,
mix,
the fancy
or do you
name
mix
for it.
that with rubber as well, or is there such a blend?
You don't. I've not seen a dual polymer with the rubber, but I think some universities have experimented with that.
Oh, it's
There's been
either
some
or.
trials.
It's either or.
It's always been either or.
Okay.
But particularly from a cost-effective point of view, because at some point you could continue to add some performance enhancers, but you're not going to get the return eventually if you're
Right.
depending on how many you're using.
It seems like they're trying to cram all kinds of junk into our asphalt and
Yeah.
waste and figure out, hey, let's just put it in the roads.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't know if Sierra Pacific has ran into this before, and I know I haven't personally, but I'm sure that in a laboratory setting, this mix design works. When we're gonna make a small batch here in a laboratory setting, and then we compact it, but then in the real world, you get it out there in the real world, it doesn't really work all that well. I mean, have you guys ever experienced that?
Yeah, I think that's a
A daily?
yeah, that's a
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's
yeah,
a normal thing.
Yeah, it's like
It's-
a daily challenge.
Oh, okay.
Hey, it works in the lab.
That-
It's just
See, that's the part that we don't
Yes,
see.
and the one
Right.
thing is, I go to these conferences and the engineers, and I want to bring up another point too. I'll see if your plant can do this, but the guys at the Calapa conferences and stuff, like, oh, well, just do this or do this. So like warm mix asphalt, like, it has longer life, or you can keep it on the truck longer. I'm like, that it sounds counterintuitive to me. Like warm mix, it's a cooler temperature.
That's right.
Asphalt's all about getting the right compaction, the right temperatures.
Yes.
But do you guys make warm mix out of this plant, or?
We do, yeah. We've more out of this plant than our Valley plant, but we have, yes.
Does
In
that
fact, we have a
work?
job coming up. with
Does it
Capture
work?
X. It does. The warm mix does. You could look at it 2 different ways. You could you could produce it at lower temperatures and compact it at lower temperatures. So same thing, you're paving in the same town as the plant, so it's not like hauling is a cooling down is going to be a problem.
Right.
So they just make it colder at the plant, and you can place it kind of as you normally would. Or if you're hauling it a long way, you're 2 hours away, or you're placing something at night plus a long haul, then you cook it with the warm mix enhancer in it, but you still cook it at the same temperature you would with like we were saying, 310, 315 degrees. But now you have that compaction window that even if it's under 285, it's between 265 and 285 out on the grade.
Okay.
You still have that compaction window down to 265 instead of losing it at 285.
Got it.
So
How does
really,
that work? Well, why is it that way?
It's something with the binder, right?
Is it the
It
binder,
is.
or I thought they just spritz water into it and foam it or something?
well,
That's
there's
what I've heard.
actually there's a couple different technologies, and that water foam is one, and then there's the chemical additive, which is another. There's several. A third one that I could just think of off the top of my head is actually kind of aggregate based, where it does foam the product, but you're not adding water direct. You're actually adding an aggregate product.
So in the warm mixes, are you still using like a PG grade asphalt?
Yes. Yeah. So that is.
So there's something chemically to where it slows down
the density
the
as you
process of the asphalt cooling off and getting hard then.
Yes. Yeah. On the chemical side, it's a lot like in concrete? What's the equivalent accelerator?
Yeah, like an accelerator,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Or a retarder.
Retarder,
Right? Okay.
right.
So same way with these chemicals. Not so much the water. The water is a kind of a different mechanism, but the chemicals, yeah. If you could put a little bit in there and it'll give you 5 degrees more compaction temperature, or you could put a lot in there and you could get 30 degrees more compaction temperature.
Interesting.
Sort of
Yeah.
thing.
Evolution.
Yeah,
Just
the technology
you
of
got the
it.
technology. That,
So it does take it. That's another one of those warm mix that has a lot of benefits and pros to it, but you still have to thread that needle.
Right, exactly. Because I feel like I was getting at earlier, as the engineer's like, "Oh, just use warm mix." I'm like, for a skin patch or something. And I was like, is that a good idea? I don't
That's
know.
right.
Like,
Yeah.
like you know, like, would the skin patch would be like a really thin Band-Aid surface patch for those at home. It's just like, but I don't know if that would work. Is
Well,
it?
but you're thinking of it like you're thinking of warm mix as like cold mix.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
And-
like
and-
is it able to like?
But
Am I getting
Oh, but
action?
no, it's not like that. That's an interesting perspective,
I get
Scott,
that's
because
how, yeah.
warm mix will, once it cools down,
Tightens up like
its,
asphalt.
it does.
Right.
It tightens up, and you can't go back to it.
Exactly.
You
So you're not going to meet your density if you're not compacting, especially if
That's
the
right.
ground is cold for a thin lift patch or a thin overlay. Or
Well,
something.
no, but I
Maybe
think
it's
what
not.
Yes.
Brian is saying though is the warm mixes.
Yep.
You put it down, you roll it, you compact it just like regular HMA,
Right.
and it gets hard and it's done. Done deal.
Yeah,
Right.
It's not temporary. It's a
It's a
very
permanent, yeah, it's a
permanent.
permanent asphalt. No, but I was saying like I just want to know, make sure like treat it like you would any other asphalt. Make sure you're getting it at the right temperatures, getting compaction down.
Yes.
Make sure your temperature on the ground isn't too cold, so you don't shock the material.
Well, like Brian said, you're only delaying compaction. You're
Right.
not eliminating
Yeah,
compaction.
okay.
You're delaying it.
That's
Just like with concrete, you're
being
retarding.
it,
You're retarding the set
set
off.
time.
Yeah, set
Right.
time.
Yes.
Same thing with asphalt. You're just retarding. Because like we've talked about before, with concrete, with asphalt. I mean, people don't realize it. We're no different than a milk producer. What we're using is a very perishable product.
Yes.
Definitely perishable. Yeah.
More perishable than concrete in a lot of ways.
Yes.
You know,
Mhm.
It's very much so. It's like you can't just leave it sitting in the truck for hours and hours on end. Like
Mhm.
you got to use it. Once it's out there, you got to put it down.
That's
and
right.
you do a lot of concrete and asphalt yourself.
for people that are listening, and because you bring up a good point, warm mix, I'm a proponent of it. You know, it's like there are some people that are hesitant to use it for good reason, which is their experience is they couldn't get compaction. It was tender for too long. They couldn't work it. It wasn't workable. And that is kind of an application issue that you really got to work with your supplier on how far you're taking it. What is your expected compaction temperature? Because then we
When you
turn
get on
around
it,
to
Yeah.
our vendor that we buy the material from and ask them those same questions, and they say, well, you need to dose it at this rate.
Well, that's a good point. Do you, Tim, as a sales guy, when you, let's say I call you and say, hey, I'm going to be doing this little apartment complex out in Morro Bay where it's foggy, it's cool, it's near the ocean.
Yeah.
Can I use a warm mix? Would you suggest no, yes? What, like, I'm not going to be able to get a roller in there real fast because we're pulling out a carport. So what would you suggest, or do you kind of understand those things? And
Yeah,
help the
I think
contractors?
I would steer you clear of like a warm mix. I mean, there's specific applications.
Don't sell it to me.
for that. I mean, and
We don't want to sell it unless it's spec'd out.
Right. Well, yeah.
But yeah,
You have a lot of money? Yeah, sure. I'll sell you warm mix. Yeah, because it does come with a.
I want open graded Taurus
Yeah.
for overlay.
But that is part of the conversations that we like to have, and to your point, Tim, that's why I think the technical side of the work is more fun.
Yeah.
Is because when you guys call with an opportunity like that, it does. We'll at least throw out the suggestion, like, well, you could use warm mix. You're on some huge hill and you're not going to get up and down. It's going to be sitting on the ground for a while or whatever. Maybe it would work, for a day. I mean, it's
Yeah, you couldn't pave it like you conventionally would do paving. So it's a different application. You might have a condition like that.
And it could help you in the long run, right? I mean, to lay it down once, we work together and, we thread that needle, to lay it down once, and it costs a little bit more for the additive and the material, but it's
what would we say percentage-wise? How much more is it for the contractors that are watching? So here on the Central Coast, asphalt's anywhere, $60-65 a ton. That's kind of the average of where we're at right now. How much more would you say the warm mix material is?
It's about, on our side, it costs us another about 5%.
Well, that's not so bad.
No, it's not. It's not too bad. But then when you're comparing,
in my mind, I was thinking 25%. That would be a lot.
Most additives are not too bad relative to like you said, it's $60, give or take. But $5 is a huge difference between us and the competitor.
That's right.
On a mix. So it's like, yes, we definitely want to. We always do want to work with the customer, and if they are interested in maybe paying a little bit more for an additive that would be to their benefit financially, great. But we don't want to lead anyone down a primrose path or have them work with something that they're unfamiliar with that we wouldn't be able to support for some reason.
I think a lot of the engineers, when they build these pavements, they design them for long roadways because that's the majority of the asphalt's going to go. Mm-hmm. But for a contractor like me and Scott, we're doing little parking lots or driveways, a lot of planners. You're picking up the street, dropping it, resetting it. Sometimes you can't get the roller in right away because just the angles of the design of the layout of the parking lot.
Sometimes you can't get the roller past the paver.
It becomes challenging.
Right, yeah,
exactly. Because the paver's blocking.
You're paving out.
Exactly, you're paving out. So that's a challenge for contractors like us to get good compaction quickly on small areas like that.
Interesting.
So I don't know if they take account to those kinds of things. Especially if you're in Morro Bay where it's really cold and it's a little HOA.
You guys go out and see this work firsthand, before when you're going through the bidding process. So those are things that that you have that in your arsenal now.
Yeah.
You can then, hey, here's a perfect application for warm mix.
Yeah.
You can maybe educate your customers a little bit on that too. So
are you keeping the product here readily available all the time to make warm mix?
We do, yes.
Oh, okay.
Even though we don't make it very often.
The additive?
We use the additive. Okay. We do, real quick, the
water doesn't have anything to do with the warm mix, right?
No, well, it does. So there's the chemical application, no water involved. That's what we use here. Then they have they've built plants, and it's actually specific to the plant. It's not an additive. So there's a plant process where they do add in a small amount of water to the oil, which is naturally hot and
creates steam.
Yes, and I've done the dumb shit in the past before, where it's like, little cup of hot water and put a drop of water or hot oil and put a drop of hot water. Of course,
it flash boils.
Yes.
They instantly boils. Yeah,
so
that's right.
They use that principle. So that principle is basically they just want to expand and bubble that
Don't
asphalt
do that at home.
foam.
Yeah.
That's right. Don't do that at home. And the foaming the asphalt apparently does a couple things. One, it reduces the oxidation of the asphalt during the mixing process, which keeps it softer. So instantly
reduces cooking it.
Yes,
literally just cooking the asphalt. Yeah.
Yes, even though we're still making it to about the same temperature, or we would still cook it to 300 if we were just hauling it further away or something.
Right.
We still cook it to the same temperature. But the asphalt, because of that addition of water, for whatever reason I don't understand, and the bubbling and everything, it reduces that harsh oxidation that starts to happen.
Rush said, I think the Vulcan plant, Rush is one of my suppliers down south. I know you deal with them too. Mm-hmm. And I think they have that type of drum plant down there in Ventura County.
Which is great because you can just turn it on whenever you want. Yeah. Then you don't have to have the additive on site. It's just it's literally just water. That one is harder for me to wrap my head around though, because you don't get that support from your technical group that, it's 0.3% or it's 0.7%.
For it's like additive. You have someone you could call at a lab or something. Hey, how are we going to make this? What should we do to make this mix?
That's right. I'm hauling it 3 hours away versus
He's more
2.
on his own, but he might have more experience using that method too.
Yep.
So
that foaming asphalt is pretty interesting, and I've seen both used too, where they've done the chemical with the foam together, kind of during the warm mix craze 10 years ago. It was really kind of getting a little bit of traction.
It kind of lost steam, right?
It did. They kept trying to drive down these cook temperatures, which is interesting to see these groups come in and they really want to sell this product and everything. It's like, oh no, you can make asphalt at 200 degrees if you combine this with this.
keep your burner turned down.
And we've tried, and there is a point where it can only go so low. And beyond that, you're just
it's trapped. The material's useless.
Right.
Cold mix now. I mean,
no
just go get your cold mix from Essential Cold Mix.
That's right.
I don't want to. Warm mix has a lot of good applications. I think it's underutilized. Honestly, there's areas that it could be used that would help those homeowners, help those areas.
I'd like to see.
Brian's right though. Brian's right. I mean, I remember 10 years ago in the trade magazines, man, warm mix was the craze.
That's right.
And then it kind of dropped off the radar.
I remember being an East Coast thing though. They're really blowing up on the East Coast because temperature.
Well, California being what it is and being the tree hugger state that we are, they were all about it. Oh, we're going to reduce emissions and reduce the hydrocarbon to the planet and yada yada yada, but then it just kind of you just didn't hear about it anymore.
I think the intent or the hope was that everything would go warm mix one day and there would be no such thing as cook and mix at 300 degrees or whatever. But it's just
that's the ideology. That's the ideology that in our lifetime. In our lifetime, I mean, I think it's the same thing with electric vehicles.
Yeah, good point.
Electric vehicles. In our lifetimes here, we will not see a planet with all electric vehicles. But maybe in our kids, maybe in your kids or my daughter's life or your daughter's life, they may see a world like that. But in the world we live in now, no. Just like we're not going to see everything universally cold warm mix.
Yes.
Just as we're not going to see universally everybody driving electric cars.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a good point.
Is there, we're running kind of long, so I was wondering, is there any other questions you want to ask? And I was thinking maybe we could do a 2-part episode on this because we wanted to take a plant tour as well to go see if that's okay with you guys. But is there any other things while we have these guys' time here?
No, I think you guys are very helpful.
Tim, is there anything you want to say? Or?
It's just appreciate the opportunity. I look forward to getting together again. I think, like I said, there's so many topics we can really hit on.
That's what we did the podcast. Like we could talk for days and days about all these things.
We talked just a little bit about the technology too, and I don't think we've all caught up with this technology. There's a lot of technology out there that we've really just barely tapped into. So it's an education process, and it's all of our responsibilities.
I haven't even touched on like loading trucks, what types of trucks you kind of load.
Those are the critical ones.
Maybe we could talk about it in the when we do the plant tour. And but I really appreciate your time. Maybe we could come back and do another episode with you guys.
I think that's a great idea. Yeah.
So I really appreciate
unfortunately, the plant isn't active today, so maybe we'll time it right.
Well, it's a good time to do a plant tour because we're not going to get run over by that.
That's right. It's safe.
That's right.
We're not going to get taken out.
That's right. No, it is a good time for a plant tour.
So
really definitely. Have you guys done a mine tour yet?
No. Okay. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, we got to get you.
Do you have those big giant where the tires are like 7 feet tall?
Right.
Yes.
Big trucks, the dump trucks.
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
We should do that.
Take a trip out to Avenel.
Yes.
See what a $15,000 tire looks like on a
loader.
Somebody pops that one. They're losing their job tomorrow.
That's right.
And you have big blades out there to cut the haul roads and everything?
Yes, we do. We got some big dozers that we purchased recently.
Big dozers, like D11 size, big stuff.
I love the motivators. They're so goofy looking. They're so cool.
I think the mine trucks, the dump trucks, I mean, they can haul like 150 tons in one dump truck load.
Yes.
It blows my mind.
I know. I don't understand how else they figured out. Like you push a gas pedal and it moves all of that.
Love to do a rock plant too. We'll do a rock plant too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
That'll be the next one.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, guys. I appreciate your time.
Yes.
Brian, Tim, thank you so much for having us.
Thank you guys.
And if there's any questions, drop us a line. Please send us emails with any other topic ideas.
Subscribe.
Yeah. Click the bell, right? Is that what you call it?
Yeah. Oh, the bell's new. Yeah.
The bell is
cool. Yeah. I like it.
Our episodes are finally dropped in on YouTube. We hope you're enjoying them. And until next time, we'll see you down the road.